The rain was coming down in sheets as I stared out the window of my Seattle apartment, the Space Needle a blurred silhouette in the distance. Bertram, a 43-year-old architect, felt as gray and indistinct as the city skyline. My life, once a vibrant tapestry of love and shared dreams with my wife, Rowena, had been reduced to a monochrome sketch, all thanks to a single devastating discovery. Rowena and I had been married for 15 years. We met in college, two bright-eyed kids with a shared passion for literature and a naive belief in happily ever after. She was a vibrant, ambitious lawyer, always impeccably dressed and fiercely intelligent. I was drawn to her energy, her drive, and the way she could make me laugh even when I felt like the world was collapsing around me. We built a life together, brick by brick, filled with weekend trips to the San Juan Islands, cozy nights by the fireplace, and the comforting rhythm of shared routines. But somewhere along the way, the music had faded. The laughter became less frequent, the shared dreams replaced by a polite, almost sterile coexistence. I attributed it to the pressures of our careers, the inevitable wear and tear of time. I was wrong, terribly, painfully wrong. The first crack in the facade appeared innocently enough. Rowena started working late more often, citing a demanding new case at her firm. "It's a big one, Bertram," she'd say, her voice tight with exhaustion. Potential partner-making stuff. I understood. I'd been there myself, burning the midnight oil to secure a coveted project. I made her dinners, drew her baths, and tried to be as supportive as possible. I was a fool. A blind, trusting fool. Then came the subtle shifts in her behavior. She became more distant, less affectionate. The kisses felt perfunctory, the hugs fleeting. She started taking meticulous care of her appearance, spending hours at the gym and experimenting with new hairstyles. I noticed a new perfume, something floral and expensive that I hadn't bought her. When I asked about it, she brushed it off, saying it was a gift from a client. My gut churned with a nameless dread. I tried to dismiss it, to rationalize it away. Rowena was my wife, my best friend, the woman I loved more than anything in the world. She wouldn't do that to me. Would she? The answer came on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered in the cold, unforgiving glare of a computer screen. I was working from home, wrestling with a particularly complex blueprint when I needed to access our shared online storage account. Rowena had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and I absent-mindedly clicked on the appropriate folder. That's when I saw it. A folder labeled Confidential. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I shouldn't open it, but I couldn't stop myself. Curiosity, or perhaps a desperate need for confirmation, propelled me forward. Inside were dozens of emails, a digital chronicle of a betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter my reality. They were addressed to a man named Florian, a senior partner at Rowena's firm. The emails started innocently enough, discussing work-related matters, but quickly escalated into something far more intimate. Flirtatious banter, shared jokes, and then the unmistakable language of love. "I can't stop thinking about you, Rowena," one email read. "These late nights are killing me, but being with you makes it all worthwhile." Another: "I know this is wrong, but I can't help myself. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met." And then the graphic details. Explicit descriptions of their encounters, the stolen moments in hotel rooms, the whispered promises of a future together. I stumbled back from the laptop, my legs weak, my head reeling. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the familiar landscape of my life suddenly alien and hostile. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, the air knocked out of me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could only stare at the screen, the words blurring through the tears that streamed down my face. For what felt like an eternity, I stood there, frozen in place, the rain drumming against the window pane like a mournful dirge. The betrayal was so blatant, so callous, it defied comprehension. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to me, look me in the eye, and pretend that everything was fine? The rage came next, a white-hot fury that consumed me from the inside out. I wanted to scream, to break things, to inflict the same pain on her that she had inflicted on me. I clenched my fists, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to lash out, to destroy everything in my path. But beneath the anger, a deep, agonizing sadness began to creep in. The realization that the woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was a stranger. that the past 15 years had been a lie, a carefully constructed facade built on deceit and betrayal. When Rowena finally came home that evening, she found me sitting in the living room, the laptop open on the coffee table, the incriminating emails displayed on the screen. She paled, her eyes widening in horror. The carefully constructed mask of composure slipped, revealing the raw fear beneath. "Bertram," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I can explain," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to me for months while you were sleeping with another man." She started to cry, the tears streaming down her face. "It just happened," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, incredulous. "A mistake that involved months of secret rendezvous, explicit emails, and blatant lies. Is that what you call a mistake?" She tried to touch me, to take my hand, but I recoiled from her touch as if she were poison. "Please, Bertram," she pleaded. "Don't do this. We can work through this. I love you. Don't you dare say that," I said, my voice rising. "Don't you dare pretend that you love me after what you've done. You've destroyed everything, Rowena, everything we built together." She continued to cry, begging for forgiveness, but I was numb. The words washed over me, meaningless and empty. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who had shattered my heart into a million pieces. I told her to leave. I told her I never wanted to see her again. I told her that our marriage was over. She packed her bags that night, her sobs echoing through the empty apartment. As she walked out the door, she turned to me one last time, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and defiance. "You'll regret this, Bertram," she said. "You'll see. You're making a mistake." I didn't respond. I simply closed the door and locked it behind her. I stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of her footsteps fading away, until the silence was broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on anything. I called in sick to work, spending my days wandering aimlessly through the city, lost in a sea of despair. Our friends, Leon and Odell, tried to be supportive, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to them about what had happened. The shame and humiliation were too much to bear. I felt like a fool, a cuckold, a laughingstock. I hired a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Christoph, to handle the divorce. She was efficient and professional, but even her detached demeanor couldn't shield me from the emotional toll of the proceedings. As the divorce progressed, I began to uncover more details about Rowena's affair. I learned that it had been going on for nearly a year, that she and Florian had been planning to leave their spouses and start a new life together. I discovered that Florian was not the upstanding, successful lawyer he appeared to be. He had a history of financial irregularities and unethical behavior. Armed with this information, I decided to take action. I contacted the authorities and provided them with the evidence I had gathered. Florian was investigated and ultimately charged with fraud and embezzlement. His career was ruined, his reputation destroyed. Rowena, meanwhile, was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She lost her job at the law firm, her friends abandoned her, and she was ostracized by the legal community. She tried to contact me to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but I refused to speak to her. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel the same pain that she had inflicted on me. I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions. But as time passed, the anger began to subside, replaced by a weary resignation. I realized that revenge, while satisfying in the short term, was ultimately empty and meaningless. It didn't bring Rowena back. It didn't erase the pain, and it didn't make me feel any better. I started seeing a therapist, a kind, compassionate woman named Bront, who helped me to process my emotions and to move on with my life. She taught me that forgiveness was not about condoning Rowena's actions, but about freeing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. It was a long and difficult process, but gradually I began to heal. I started to focus on my work, to reconnect with my friends, and to rediscover the things that brought me joy. I took up painting again, something I had abandoned years ago. I started traveling, exploring new cities and cultures. I even started dating again, cautiously, tentatively, but with a renewed sense of hope. One day, about 2 years after the divorce, I received a letter from Rowena. It was handwritten on simple, unadorned paper. In it she apologized for her action, acknowledging the pain she had caused me. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but she expressed the hope that someday I would be able to find peace. I read the letter, my heart aching with a mixture of sadness and understanding. I realized that Rowena, too, had suffered the consequences of her choices. She had lost everything, and she was now living a life of quiet desperation. I didn't respond to the letter, but I did something else. I went to see her. I found her living in a small, run-down apartment on the outskirts of the city. She looked older, worn down, her eyes devoid of the spark that I had once loved. We talked for a long time about everything that had happened, about the mistakes we had made, about the pain we had both endured. There were no accusations, no recriminations, only a quiet understanding of the shared tragedy that had befallen us. As I left her apartment that day, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. I realized that forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about accepting the past and moving on with your life. Rowena and I never rekindled our relationship, but we did manage to forge a fragile friendship. We occasionally met for coffee to catch up on each other's lives. We even managed to laugh together sometimes about the absurdity of it all. I eventually met someone new, a kind, intelligent woman named Gwyneth who accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. We built a new life together, filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. I learned that it was possible to find happiness again, even after experiencing the deepest betrayal. The scars of Rowena's affair will always be there, a reminder of the pain I endured. But they are also a reminder of my resilience, my strength, and my ability to overcome adversity. I am not defined by what happened to me, but by how I chose to respond to it. And I choose to live a life filled with love, compassion, and forgiveness. I hope you also can find the strength to do the same.